I'm Melanie Johnson, along with my co-host Jen Foster. We are both 13-time best-selling authors. We've published over 2,500 books and made all of our authors #1 bestsellers. We own Elite Online Publishing. If you want to become a best-selling author, look us up at eliteonlinepublishing.com. Now, welcome to the podcast that shares secrets from top industry experts that show you how to get lasting success and results. This is the Elite Expert Insider Podcast. Hey everyone, it's Melanie Johnson here with another great podcast. I'm flying solo today. My partner Jen Foster is in the Bahamas. Can you believe that? She's having a great time. She even did a little work from down there. I don't know why she did that, but that was good for her. But so I've got the show to myself today, and we just have a fabulous show. Before we get started, I want to remind you to subscribe to the podcast and make sure you share it with your friends and leave us a comment. And we always appreciate a review. And if you're thinking about writing a book, make sure you reach out to us at eliteonlinepublishing.com and leave a submission. And, you know, it kind of rolls into what we're going to talk to you about today. We're going to talk about credibility and authority in the marketplace and how to get it. So our way is, you know, hey, write a book and you get instant credibility. But we have an expert, Victoria Kennedy, here today, who has a whole new toolbox for you about how to gain instant credibility, instant authority in the marketplace, things you can do right now. So Victoria, thanks for coming today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I love this topic. It's my favorite topic. And just as you talk about with books, books are amazing. And there's so many other things that I'd love to shed light on of how you can become the #1 authority in your niche.
So tell us a little bit, how did you get started in PR? You have a public relations company. How did you get
Yes.
started? And then how did you develop into this niche that you have?
Yeah. Well, actually, I'm actually an opera singer, a professional opera singer.
Oh,
That's my background. Yes. And here's the thing about singing. If anybody's listening who is a performer or a musician in any way, you know that if you don't know how to advertise, you're singing for your supper, right? So you get really good at establishing relations with editors and journalists and figuring out how to get your music out there. So that's what I've done my whole life. I didn't know it was PR. To me, it was survival, right? You got to make sure that your music is in all of these places so that you can do what you love for a living. So I was doing that. And then I was actually in Europe. I had a #1 hit single out there because of my PR work. I was singing in castles and cathedrals. And then the government decided not to renew my visa. So I had to come back to America with zero skills. So I decided to go all in on marketing. It went really well. I discovered my superpower was being able to have these connections, help other business owners get credibility because it's something I've been doing my whole life. I mean, when I started doing PR for my business, I was able to get myself into Forbes, Entrepreneur. I was just spoke on a TEDx stage. All these things came naturally. And I realized that it's a superpower that I can use to help other people grow their business and their credibility.
So talk about, we're going to talk about instant credibility, but I want to just get some definitions out there. We were saying, you know, in your bio, it says I can get people verified on Instagram and Facebook. And my son, Nathan Johnson, recently got verified on Instagram. And to most people, they're like, I don't know what that is. And what does that do for me? Kind of explain what that is, what it does for somebody, why it's important, and how you do it.
Absolutely. So verification is just a little blue check mark that it's next to your name on Instagram as well as Facebook. Now, this tells Facebook and Instagram and everybody that you're the legit person, because there's a lot of copycats out there. That's why it started where you are the real person you say you are. Your name is your name. This is great for so many reasons, especially now because of COVID. Everybody is online. This isn't going away. People working from home, people checking out people's credibility online. This is here to stay. So now more than ever, it's so important to get verified so people know, one, it's really you, and two, it's the highest form of social proof you can possibly have. No matter any interaction you make on social media, any comment you make, anything you like, you're going to come up first. You're the star on these big social platforms because you are verified. Not only that, but another benefit is if you run ads, you're going to get a lower cost per lead. And you're going to have less of a chance of getting your ad account shut down because you've told Facebook that you're the most verifiable person on their platform.
You know, the other thing that my son had told me was in messaging. He's like, when you message somebody, he said, normally the message goes into their feed and it goes down to the bottom. But when you're verified, your message stays as one of the top 10 messages and shows that
Yeah.
you're verified. He just got, he DM'd Mark Cuban's business partner. And because he was verified, the guy answered him right away and set up a phone call with him. So that's the
Wow.
kind of response you get when you're verified. You know, you can
Absolutely.
DM Beyonce or anybody that's famous or Mark Cuban, and they're going to see it, and your
Mhm.
probability of getting answered is way, way up there. So tell us,
Absolutely.
what are your top ninja tricks to getting right away? You said there are things you can do right now to start getting instant credibility and authority. What are some of those things?
Absolutely. So one of the first things that I see from people who are like, yeah, I want this verification and I want blah, blah, blah. And I say, well, how can you get verified? Let's take a look at your social media right now. So if you're listening to this, if you're thinking, yeah, I want that blue check mark, let's actually take a look at what you're actually posting right now. Do you deserve that check mark? Are you credible? Are you being seen as an authority? Okay, let's do a big audit. I want to make sure if somebody comes to your page, here's this thing, guys. Here's a little secret. You only have 3 seconds to impress somebody who comes to your page. That's all that they're going to make an assessment about you in 3 seconds. If
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what you do in 3 seconds, I'm sorry, I don't trust you. I'm on to someone next. If you're a realtor, if you're a marketer, whatever it is that you do, we should know that right away. It should be in your cover photo, your banner, somewhere in your bio. We need to know what it is you do. So that's step one.
So I think that's important. And, you know, with I go back to my son Nathan again, one of the things that did put him over the edge because he had been written up in the New York Times. So some of the press that you get them, I think, is important because you have to have a footprint to be verified.
Mhm.
You just can't come out of nowhere and you're only on Instagram posting. Not that say that you can if you have a lot of followers, but he worked with us and became part of a group that was an author of a book, and he
Nice.
became Wall Street Journal USA Today bestseller list, and that
Great.
was the icing on the cake that pushed him over the edge. He's like, once I had that, mom, then I got verified. It was like bam, it was
Mhm.
done.
Yep.
So that's
Yep.
really important.
And that's how it works. When I work with my clients for verification, press is a huge part of it. I can't do verification unless they have press, and not just any press, the right press. And you're talking about authorship. Guys, that's number one. I mean, obviously we've gotten clients verified who are not authors, but that really helps with your credibility having a book. If you don't have a book, getting into top tier publications is what is important, right? So Yahoo Finance, Forbes magazine, Entrepreneur magazine. And if you're thinking, Victoria, how do I get into those? You start small. You have to start somewhere. You start small. Something is better than nothing. You know, this is how you build your online presence, is by starting one small publication at a time.
It's really having that digital footprint is what I tell people.
Mhm.
Like, you know, we've talked with people like their LinkedIn profile is just, it's like it's a blank page. There's a gray banner there. There's nothing really there. Like, oh, well, people really don't find me by my LinkedIn. They really use our website, but it's your digital footprint. It all counts. It all
Yes.
elevates your website. Like if your LinkedIn isn't prolific, then your website's not going to be as prolific, or the SEO is not going to be as good, because it all uh, helps promote each other. And that's what you're saying. When you have these articles written about you, it raises your whole brand. Why is PR and branding so important to a company or an individual?
Absolutely, because it is the one thing that keeps you different from everyone else. Because here's the thing, whatever you do, I don't care what it is you do, there's competitors out there who are trying to do the exact same thing you're doing. How do you step up? How do you be different? Because when you get to a certain level in your business, let's say, you know, you're like, you're doing okay now, you're not struggling anymore, you're doing okay. Here's the objection. If you haven't heard already, you're going to keep on hearing over and over. Why should I go with you when your competitor does the exact same thing you do and for cheaper? Why should I go with you?
Mm-hmm.
The only thing, and I don't, you can run paid ads forever. That's never going to make you different. That's never going to be able to make you answer that question. The only thing is this credibility from these third party sources saying, this is why I'm amazing at what I do. Don't take my word from it. Go look at the articles, go Google me, go see what other people have to say. That's what's going to make you different. Not only different and winning the sales, but being the market leader, getting all the sales. So when people think about marketing, they think about you. When they think about social media, they think about you, because you've taken the time to establish your credibility with PR.
It's so true. I mean, I always say have testimonials on your website because then it's not just you saying you're great. You've got people that have worked with you that are saying you're great. And then here it is. It's like Forbes magazine or Yahoo Finance saying, hey, we could have picked anyone to write about in this
Mhm.
genre or this niche. And we chose this company to do
Yeah.
it because we've done our research. We've compared them to other people or companies, and
Mhm.
we think they're more worthy to write about. So you talk about $1 million run rate. So first educate us, what is a run rate? And then tell us how you got to the $1 million run rate.
Yeah, so $1 million run rate means that we're over 80K a month per month, which means if we keep on going at this rate, we'll be $1 million business per month. And I'm happy to say we're over 100K a month per month on average, the $1 million run rate. So we're definitely just a couple thousand shy of getting there, which is so exciting. And this has all been built this year. So our agency is almost a year old, not quite a year old, but we were able to reach 0 to 100K in the first 90 days, less than 90 days.
So
And
it's really your
guys,
profit. It's your gross profit is a run
revenue.
rate. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Revenue.
the revenue. So we did that from zero paid ads. We did that all from the power of PR. This is why I believe in what I do so much, because I was
Mhm.
able to build my business to this $1 million run rate so quickly, seemingly overnight, because one, I knew what I was doing, but two, because of the power of press. I know how to
Mhm.
tell a story of saying, this is why you should trust me. This is what I do. And because of that, I never had to run an ad in order to get to this level. This is why I understand the power of publicity.
And don't you think you have to know, you touched on it, you have to have a story. So before you're reaching
Mhm.
out to the press and saying, hey, write about me, don't you have to know who you are, who your business is, what your story is, what's compelling, what does make you different? And how do you come up with those things?
Yeah. And it's funny because sometimes I'm on the phone with 6, 7, even $8 million business owners, and you would think that they have their story together. They don't, let me tell you. I'm on these calls and they're like, oh, Victoria, I don't know. And that's why it's really important if you don't have a publicist, talk to your friend, talk to a business partner and just say, look, I just want to mind dump different things that I think would be a compelling story, because in our minds, we think we know who we are, but how
Yeah.
the world sees us is different, and how we choose to be seen in the world is different. But here's the power of PR. You get to decide how you want the world to see you, right? If you
Right.
don't want to be defined by your past, or you want people to focus on one thing about you, you tell that story. Don't let other people tell your story. Take ownership and say, you know what? I don't want to talk about that in my past. I want to talk about this. I'm an opera singer. I talk about that, but I've also won pageants before. I don't talk about that. Not that I don't want to, but I'm very judicious about my story, about how I want it told because of branding, because how I want to be seen in the marketplace. So take the power, decide, not letting other people decide for you, but saying, this is who I am, this is
Mhm.
my story, and this is what I'm sticking to.
Controlling the narrative. I was in
Narrative.
pageants too. I was Miss Michigan and I never used to use that at all. And then till someday I saw someone say, oh yeah, I was whatever runner up to Miss America or something. And I thought, I was first runner up to Miss America. Why did I say that? I just kind of like
Yeah.
pushed it to the side, like, oh, well, I'm just going to downplay that. I owned a TV station. That's way more bigger
What?
than running a pageant, winning that. So I always ran with that part of it. And I was thinking about, you're telling your story, controlling the narrative, but don't
Mhm.
you also, I mean, being from television and creating ads and doing all that, you have to have a hook, because if you don't have
Mhm.
a hook, then the media doesn't really care. You have to be relevant for what's going on in the environment and what's being told right now. I mean, everything's COVID and different things like that. But don't you have to come up with a hook for them to be interested to write about you? So how do
Oh,
you do
yeah.
that?
Oh, yeah. And I'm sorry to say, but if you're a white male and rich and successful, that's the hardest. And those are a lot of my clients. I'm like, oh, great. Another white guy who made money. That's fantastic for me. What am I
Yeah.
going to do with that? That's quite difficult, but it's just being creative. So it's like, okay, do you have kids? All right, you're a father. Let's do the father angle. Okay, did you go bankrupt before you started? Okay, 0 to 7 figures. That's an angle, right? So it's just taking different things that's happened to you and spinning it. And the most thing, and I love this, this is my job. This is what I do every day for my clients, is coming up with new angles for them for the magazine. So there's two things I want to say. One, you've
Mhm.
done so many things in your past. This is why it's really important to either work with a publicist or talk to a friend about just everything that's ever happened to you. Because there's something there
Yeah.
that's a story. Number two, you want it to be relatable, right? So even if you're thinking my life is as boring as possible, well, guess what? A lot of people have boring lives too. What can you say about that is like relatable that we
Mhm.
could spin into a story? And number three, most important, where do you want to be? Where are you pitching? Right? Let's say you want to go into entrepreneur because you're a real estate person. Well,
Right.
then you go to the real estate section in Entrepreneur Magazine and you start reading what's relevant. What are they posting right now? What's the market talking about? What are people interested in right now? Then you know, okay, I'm going to craft a story about, things you need to know for the spring market because it's coming up and it's always big. Is it going to be different in 2021 as opposed to
Mhm.
2020 because of the pandemic? That's a great angle, right? You wouldn't know that unless you did your due diligence. So those are the three things you need to think about.
So remind us the three things again. Go over them, 1, 2, and 3.
Okay, so the first thing you need to write your whole story, your whole life story, and figure out what is your unique selling proposition. 2, is it relatable? And 3, is it relevant to the publication you're pitching?
Yep. And what's going on in the market today? Like you say, oh, spring's coming up. Let's make it about spring, or having that hook.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's so hard to get in there, and most people think it's monumental, and places are choosy. But the good news is there are so many places now
Yes.
that they're really looking for content, and they're looking to
Mhm.
be different than the next guy, that they don't have the same content as everybody else. So if you can bring something exclusive or something different, you have a much better chance. I mean, I'm from the era where there were 5 TV stations when I first got in the TV business, and
Oh,
cable had, yeah, and cable had like 25% penetration in the marketplace with 20 stations on
wow.
cable. So, it's come
Wow.
a long way, and there's just so much. And but there's a good opportunity to be able to get on there than what you did before.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
so give us your last tip on what do you think is the most key thing that someone should do to get known for credibility and authority in the marketplace. What else can they do?
Well, number one, fix your social profile funnels so that when people find you, they see that you're credible. Number two, start posting value posts. And number three, don't be afraid to reach out to your existing circle. I bet you right now, everybody listening to this has at least 5 people that in their social Facebook friends, Instagram friends that either has a podcast, writes for a blog, or has somebody in a media connection. Don't be afraid to say, hey, I have this great stories. Are any of my friends hosting podcasts? Are any of my friends writing for articles? Reach out to them. That's your first opportunity to get your media. Start with your inner circle and then go from there.
That's great advice. It's all about your digital footprint. We even tell our authors, okay, the next thing you need to do is get on someone's podcast, is start to,
Mhm.
get those interviews, be on a blog post, because then it just creates more credibility for you with your book along the way. That's awesome. Well, tell people where they can find you and work with you.
Absolutely. You can find me at victoriouspr.com, play off Victoria. So I also have a great guide that I created. It's a free guide. It's a 5-step guide about how to get into top publications. If you guys are interested, perhaps we can put it in the show notes.
Yep.
And most importantly, though, if you guys want to get a hold of me, please find me on Facebook and send me a message. Tell me you heard me on this podcast, you liked it, you had a question about it, anything. I love human to human connections. So please don't be afraid to drop me a line. If you have any questions, I'd love to help.
Sounds great. Well, thanks for joining us today. We hope you got a lot out of this podcast. I know I did. All the good tips. And remember to subscribe and share it with your friends, and leave us a comment and leave us a review. We appreciate it. And if you're looking to gain your authority and expertise and credibility in the marketplace and write a book, just contact us. We can help you write, publish, and market your book from start to finish. We'll see you next time. Thanks so much. Hey, are you looking to increase your revenue, build credibility, and elevate your brand? This podcast is brought to you by Elite Online Publishing, an innovative publishing and full spectrum marketing company. They will publish and market your book to make it a #1 bestseller. Becoming an author is the best way to market your business. So contact them at eliteonlinepublishing.com today. All of their authors become #1 bestsellers.